Today, I'm going to give you a real quick, brief summary of how you can heal your gut issue no matter what kind you have. Because I had IBS, I suffered for 4 years, but I got better. I got through it. And so I can't give you a super long video here, but it's really important that you go to my channel page and watch all the videos in this series, because each one I go through a different part of some kind of information that you need to know in order for you to heal your gut. It's called the Heal Your Gut series, and there's 6 videos in there, and I recommend you go back and watch them. They're all labeled 1 through 6. You really need to go back and watch them so you have the information. But I healed my IBS using GNM, German New Medicine. It's important that you learn about German New Medicine. You need to learn about it and learn how your body works so that you can know how to heal. But in this video, I have some cheat notes, and at some point, I'm probably going to make a video on each gut issue on how to specifically heal it. But for time's sake, today, I'm going to just go over these kind of quickly so you can get an idea on why you have a specific gut issue and maybe what you can do to heal it. So, according to my notes here, if you have heartburn, acid reflux, H. pylori, and stomach ulcers, there's a specific biological conflict that you have. And that is either, if you're a male, it's a male territory anger conflict, or if you're a female, it's an identity conflict. And to learn about what this is, you really need to learn about GNM and how it applies to your gut. But if you have any of those conditions, depending upon if you're a male or female, you've had a certain conflict shock. And in the conflict active phase of those gut issues, you're going to have ulceration / cell loss in the lesser curvature of the stomach, pylorus and or duodenal bulb, proportional to the intensity of the conflict. The purpose of cell loss is to widen the entrance for food into the digestive system so we can utilize more nutrients to resolve the conflict. There's many symptoms that you'll get with those conditions, but in the healing phase, you will get, when the conflict gets resolved, the cell loss stops and the tissue is replenished with cell proliferation. In minor cases, one could be diagnosed with the stomach flu, and in more advanced cases, gastritis. The inflammation and edema is required for healing. Healing can only take place in a watery environment. Symptoms may include pressure, pain in the stomach area. During the healing crisis, acute sharp stomach pain, stomach cramps, and vomiting may occur. So this is just an overview if you have heartburn, acid reflux, H. pylori, or stomach ulcers. This is an overview of what's going on, but if you don't know about GNM, what a biological conflict shock is, if you don't know about the healing phase or the conflict resolution or conflict active phase, you really need to watch the video about the 5 laws of German New Medicine, and you need to go to Learning GNM and read that so you can learn, because there's so much information, I can't really go over all of that there. And then we're talking about the small intestines now, we're talking about Crohn's and SIBO. So if you have Crohn's or if you have SIBO, this is for you. The biological conflict for those conditions, not being able to digest, absorb something in your life, and being angry about it. For example, I can't digest, accept something in my life, and it angers me greatly. This thing in my life, whatever it is, I can't make sense of it and or can't accept it, and it makes me angry. It can be any emotional negative subject that you experience and consider hard to digest, except such as your medical conditions, relationship issues, career troubles, financial problems, and you are angry about it. So that's the biological conflict. In the conflict active phase of this condition, intestinal cells will start to proliferate proportional to the intensity of the conflict. These extra cells serve the purpose of making more digestive juices and more absorptive surface to help you absorb this extremely difficult matter in your life that you are angry about. So anger. What's making you angry? And then say you resolve the conflict, whatever made you angry, whatever was hard to digest. In the healing phase, when the conflict gets resolved, the extra gut cells are no longer needed, and thus the body begins to remove them with the help of bacteria and fungi. So bacteria and fungi are your friends, not your enemies. They're helping you clean up the mess. This process involves removing physical flesh from your body, which can result in blood in the stool and cause pain. Other symptoms include diarrhea, small intestinal inflammation, mucus in stool, intestinal cramping, and night sweats. People who are stuck in a hanging healing, that's when you keep going back, you're healing, but you have a conflict relapse, and then you heal, and then you have a conflict relapse. In the hanging healing of the small intestine, special program can be diagnosed with Crohn's, SIBO, and food intolerances. Most of your symptoms will be experienced when you resolve the conflict or resolve a tract linked to the small intestine program. So if you have Crohn's or SIBO, this is very important that you look at what the theme is, indigestible anger in your life. You can't accept it. The conflict active phase is cell proliferation, and the healing phase is a body's getting rid of those extra gut cells. Now we're going to talk about the large intestines, the IBS, colitis, diverticulitis, and gas. I had IBS, so this was me. Not being able, the biological conflict is not being able to digest, absorb something in your life, and it's an ugly situation. For example, I can't accept something in my life, and it feels ugly. This thing in my life, you name it, what is it? Only you can know that. You have to do the internal homework because nobody else knows but you what happened in your life that made you feel this way. I can't make sense of it and or can't accept it, and it's incredibly ugly. So it's ugly. It's a crappy kind of thing. It can be any emotional negative subject that you experience and consider as hard to digest, except such as your medical condition, and etc. So this is similar to the small intestines, but a little different. So let's look at the conflict active phase. Intestinal cells will start to proliferate proportional to the intensity of the conflict. These extra cells serve the purpose of making more digestive juices and more absorptive surface to help you absorb this extremely hard matter in your life that is ugly. So it seems like the small intestines is something that makes you angry, that's hard to digest, but it seems like with the large intestines, it's something that's specifically ugly. It has a crappy connotation to it. So there's not really any symptoms in the conflict active phase, but when you resolve it in the healing phase, when you go from the conflict active phase to the conflict resolution phase, in the healing phase, we call it, when the conflict gets resolved, the extra gut cells are no longer needed, so the body begins to remove them with the help of bacteria and fungi. Those are your friends, those little guys, having a party in your gut. This process involves removing physical flesh from your body, which can result in blood in the stool and pain. Other symptoms include diarrhea, small intestinal inflammation, mucus in stool, bowel cramping, and night sweats. Polyps are extra gut cells that did not get fully removed due to antibiotics killing the bacteria and fungi trying to remove them. Now we're going to talk about the intestinal muscles, referring to constipation, bloating, and gas. The biological conflict is something that is hard to digest, but something that isn't moving forward in your life. Maybe it's a house you're trying to sell, it's a job you're trying to get, it's a relationship you're trying to get. It's stuck, it's not moving forward. And so the conflict active phase, the intestinal muscles are what causes food to move through the intestines by expanding and contracting. When we perceive something is hard to digest / absorb, that isn't moving forward, this special program attempts to help push this thing forward by positioning a hard contracting force behind what isn't moving and expanding, widening the passage forward. Thus, this slows down the expanding and contracting in the other parts of the intestines. Symptoms often experienced from this process are constipation and bloating. Note that dry stools are not caused by intestinal muscles, but instead are caused by being conflict active in the kidney collecting tubules special program. So that's another program there. In the healing phase with these conditions, constipation, bloating, and gas, from the intestinal muscles, when the conflict is resolved, the intestinal muscles will expand and contract rapidly. You may also experience cramps and flatulence. Diarrhea is a great symptom to have after being constipated because it means that the hard to digest issue in your life is moving forward and being resolved. So you don't have to panic when you have the symptoms. It means you resolved the conflict. You're in the healing phase. Just calm down, understand what your body's doing, and let the healing continue its course. Now we're going to talk about the rectum surface mucosa. And this is where we're talking about anal fissures and hemorrhoids. The biological conflict is male territorial anger, or if you're a female, identity conflict. And I'm not going to talk a lot about what that means. I suggest you go ahead and look it up on Learning G&M. In the conflict active phase, cell ulceration, cell loss will occur proportional to the intensity and length of the conflict, with the purpose to widen the rectum to better mark one's territory or place with their feces. This can result in burning rectum pain and anal fissures in a more advanced state. In the healing phase, in the first part of the healing phase, the cell loss is replenished through cell proliferation. Inflammation, edema, and swelling in the area is required for healing, and oftentimes it can get diagnosed as proctitis. Hemorrhoids can also form in hanging healings. Other healing symptoms include anal itching, anal rectal bleeding, and rectal cramping. Hemorrhoids can be surgically removed, but we still need to assess the emotional root cause. And then last, the perianal ducts, particularly perianal fistulas. The biological conflict here with this condition, the conflict is not being able to eliminate feces fast enough, which can be experienced in a figurative sense. Like we talked, most of these, what your body's doing, what your physical body's doing, is assembled from what your psychological mind is trying to do. So your brain's using it in a figurative sense, but your body's using it in a literal sense. A figurative sense of not being able to get out of a crappy situation. You're stuck in a situation that you really see as crappy. And so it seems crazy, but that's how our body works. In the conflict active phase, the lining of the perianal ducts ulcerates proportional to the intensity and length of the conflict. The purpose of this ulceration is to facilitate faster crapping. Conflict active symptoms are not noticeable. And then when you resolve the conflict in the healing phase, during the first part of the healing phase, the cell loss is replenished through cell proliferation. The healing creates a cyst which will go away if there are no conflict relapses. If there are conflict relapses, a perianal fistula will start to form. If you address the emotional issues causing this problem, though, the blood and pus in the fistula will reduce greatly. Sometimes fistulas can heal by themselves if addressed early, but most require a minor procedure to remove it. But there you go. That is a quick overview of all the gut issues pertaining to a particular area of your body and what the conflict theme is. So really what you need to do is when you experience a conflict shock, as quickly as you can, you need to come to peace with it. You need to downplay it. And then you're going to have the resolution, which depending upon your organ or tissue, you may or may not get the symptoms in the resolution. But once you're in the healing phase, let the healing take place. I know we can't control all of life circumstances, but as best as you can, let the healing take place. And up ahead, I'm sure I'll be making videos on specific things you can do to help you get through the healing phase and to make sure that you don't keep going back into a relapse so that you can fully heal. But that's just an overview. Coming up in the future, I'm going to make specific videos about each gut issue, going into what the conflict theme is and how we can get through that in a practical way. But that's all I have for now. Please go back, watch the videos in this series so you can understand all about a biological conflict and all about the cell proliferation and the cell removal and the conflict active phase and the conflict resolution phase. Go to the 5 laws of the 5 laws of healing your gut so you can learn about that. And also to learn more in a fine detail, go to learninggnm.com and check that out. Okay, any comments or questions, let me know. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.